Let's jump right into this explainer because we are heading straight down into the dark, damp foundations of Victorian London to uncover a chilling discovery that history has almost entirely erased. See, while the entire world was absolutely obsessed with the horrors of Whitechapel, there was another, arguably more terrifying nightmare unfolding right in the shadows. I mean, you literally cannot make this up. Just imagine the jaw-dropping irony here. It's October 1888. The Metropolitan Police are busy building their brand new headquarters, the legendary new Scotland Yard. A workman is digging down in a brick vault beneath the site, and he doesn't just find rubble. He unearths a human torso. A killer had successfully hidden a dismembered victim directly underneath the very detectives whose sole job it was to catch them. The press immediately dubbed it the Whitehall Mystery. But here's the absolute wildest part of this whole thing. On the exact day this horror was pulled from the dirt, all of London was in an absolute white-hot panic over Jack the Ripper. He was actively terrorizing the East End just 2 miles away. Because the police and the media were so utterly distracted by the Ripper, this new victim's story essentially died on the spot. But, unfortunately for London, this killer was just getting started. Now, you might be wondering if this was just a bizarre one-off. It wasn't. It was a sprawling, chilling spree. It actually began over a year earlier, in May 1887, out in Essex. Then came the Scotland Yard vault in October 1888. Then the killer struck again in June 1889. That victim was eventually identified as Elizabeth Jackson, and yet again in September under a railway arch in Pinchin Street. This phantom was operating repeatedly right under the nose of the greatest police force in the world.
Part 1. The River's Grim Geography. A city built on water and shadow.
To really get inside the mind of this killer, we have to look at the 1880s River Thames. And trust me, it wasn't the pretty tourist attraction we know today. It was a murky, contaminated industrial artery, literally a massive dumping ground for a city of 5 million people. And the killer intimately understood this. They expertly weaponized the river's complex tidal countercurrents, dropping dismembered portions at calculated intervals, knowing full well the Thames would irreversibly scatter the evidence. Part 2. Surgery applied to murder, a different kind of killer. So, the grim reality found on the mortuary slab tells us exactly what kind of monster we're dealing with. Dr. Thomas Bond, who, by the way, was the exact same elite Victorian surgeon who examined the final Ripper victim, Mary Jane Kelly, took a look at these remains. His unambiguous conclusion? This was absolutely not the frantic hacking of a common street thug. The killer possessed highly precise, advanced anatomical knowledge. It was, quite literally, surgical. And the disposal method was just ice cold. It's like a macabre assembly line. Step 1, clean surgical disarticulation right at the natural joints. Why? To completely avoid the loud, messy sawing of solid bone. Step 2, secure concealment in fabric. Step 3, calculated release into the tides. This contrasts so sharply with the frenzied, chaotic violence that was typical of the era. This person was taking their time, they were methodical. Here's a detail that is just absolutely chilling. The black fabric found wrapping the Scotland Yard torso wasn't some rough, cheap sacking you'd find on the docks. It was high-quality, structured cloth. What does that tell us? It implies something terrifying. This wasn't a transient vagrant living on the streets. This killer had domestic stability. They had a private home, the right tools, and the resources to execute these horrors indoors, completely undetected by their neighbors. They walked right alongside regular society. Part 3. The Ripper Connection. 2 monsters, 1 city. When 2 horrific sprees happen at the exact same time, you naturally gotta ask, wait, was it the same guy? But look at this stark contrast. Jack the Ripper was driven by impulsive fury, killing in open, public alleys with chaotic mutilations, and he stopped in November 1888. The torso murderer was highly organized, using private indoor spaces, calculated anatomy, and methodical disposal, and they kept going well into 1889. These were 2 entirely distinct minds at work. Which brings us right back to the sheer audacity of that Whitehall vault discovery. The new Scotland Yard construction site wasn't just some open lot, it was a secured area. To get a wrapped torso into that underground brick vault, the killer either expertly sneaked in unobserved, or they actually had access as a worker. It might honestly be the most audacious, sardonic act of contempt in Victorian history. It was a literal message to the police. I am right here and you cannot stop me. While Jack the Ripper was basically playing to the gallery, our torso murderer did the exact opposite. There were no dramatic letters sent to the press, no theatrical, bloody public crime scenes designed to cause a panic. This killer weaponized silence. They expertly used the massive media circus happening just 2 miles away as the perfect camouflage. I mean, why attract the police when another killer is doing it for you, right? Part 4. Why history forgot them. Shadows without names. So how does a criminal mastermind of this magnitude just vanish from history? Well, it comes down to a really tragic Victorian hierarchy of mourning. These victims were highly marginalized, vulnerable women. Because of the dismemberment, police couldn't even identify them, save for Elizabeth Jackson. And with no names, investigations hit a brick wall. The Ripper narrative was sensational, almost novel-like. The torso files, on the other hand, were just quietly shelved by late 1889. You know what's profoundly frustrating about all this? Modern science absolutely would have caught him. Today, behavioral profilers would immediately label this an organized serial killer with deliberate evidence dispersal. But in 1888, the term serial killer didn't even exist yet. Detectives could clearly see the pattern, but they completely lacked the behavioral vocabulary and the profiling tools to trap a phantom like this. He was literally decades ahead of the police. Which leaves us with this final, haunting question to wrap up this explainer. When two monsters stalk the exact same city, why do we build a massive, romanticized mythology around one and completely erase the other? It seems history chooses its villains based on the drama they create, leaving the quietest victims forgotten in the dark. But the invisible victims of the Thames Torso Murders deserve to be remembered, not just as a footnote to the Ripper, but as the center of their own truly chilling story.